All right, welcome to a very special edition of the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast. You already know who I am. I'm your host, Matt Cardona, a.k.a. the $1,000 Broski, a.k.a. the Michael Jordan of wrestling figure collecting. But today we're not talking about wrestling figures. We have John. Did I butcher that? Did I butcher it?
Hey, you close enough, man.
Close enough.
It's funny. Nobody ever calls me by my real last name anyway. So,
well, in my phone, you're John from Footlocker.
Exactly.
So can you explain to the major marks exactly who you are, and then we'll get into why you're here?
Yeah. So, John from Footlocker, actually, probably a lot of the major marks out there actually, know who I am. And I think in probably one way, shape, or form, I'm probably a major mark of myself as well. But I work for Footlocker Inc. I've been in the shoe business basically my entire life. It's the only job, I've ever had. But I'm also a major wrestling fan, as well, as you can see by my backdrop here.
Oh, yeah.
And I've over the years worked on a lot of different sneaker collaborations, and I've done a lot of wrestling related sneaker collaborations over the years. A lot of you guys are familiar with. We actually did a shirt specifically with you and Brian at one point as well.
That's right.
And I've tried to take those two things that I love the most, sneakers and wrestling, and figure out ways to bring them together, because I've always really understood that there's a lot in common in those two communities. From a fandom perspective. And then, as you and I have known each other over the years, and we really started to unpack, kind of what it's like to be a sneaker collector and what it's like to be, a wrestling figure collector, we really started to be, wow, there's a lot of things that kind of overlap here. There's a lot of dots that are connected between both of those communities.
Yeah, 100%. Now, admittedly, I am not a sneaker guy. That might change. We'll talk about that in a second. I got a couple things.
It seems to be changing already a little bit, though.
Yeah, we got a couple things coming in the mail. But with wrestling figures, and specifically like major pod merchandise, I don't think the wrestling figure community is, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think they're used to these limited drops. Of course they're used to chase figures that you can hunt in the wild, but I don't think they're used to, like, okay, at noon, this is going to happen. Be there or you're done. And that's something that I think the pod has really done, because Mattel doesn't do that. They're too big to, they care about Walmart and Target. They don't really care about the collector. They're not putting things online. They used to have a Maddie Collector website that, again, it didn't take off because the fans, they didn't know what it was. So I want you to explain that, hey, we didn't come up with this drop model, this limited model, and it's around in so many other forms of collectibles, especially sneakers.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of the foundation of the sneaker industry, and the great thing about it too is it's not just limited to only small drops. I mean, it's a massive community, and there's a massive amount of accessibility out there. But I think people really do like and appreciate the fact that there are limited things that happen out there, and you can have that collector's mentality. In the sneaker zone. So that's been part of the sneaker game, for forever. So, I mean, there's been, drops where there's hundreds of thousands of pairs, and then there's drops where there's hundreds of pairs. And quite frankly, sometimes it can be the same shoe, but just, sort of a chase model, like you talked about, on the figure side. So that's, I wouldn't say it's been perfected in the sneaker industry, but it's been done for quite some time, in the sneaker industry. And now you start to see it more and more in the figure side as well.
Yeah, and we're trying to perfect it, but there is no way, I'm sure there's no way to please everybody, right? Like in my opinion, that to have something successful and sustainable, that the demand needs to be greater than the supply. Because if everybody can go get whatever they want, whenever they want, then do they really want it? You know what I'm saying? Sure. So we've been trying to figure out a way, like, okay, if we have these limited edition figures, what's the most fair way to drop it? Because guess what? Like, just do the math. People who want it are not going to get it. So what do you find is the best way in the sneaker community? Because I know there's bots for the wrestling figures too. There and there's also genuine fans who want the product.
Yeah, it's unique because the game has really changed over the years, right? It was, years and years ago, obviously before you had the internet, it was more about, knowing the guy who worked in the stock room at your local Footlocker, aka me. That was sort of that advantage that you would have. And, you would wait in line and you would camp out and you would set up the tent for 3 days. And it was a little bit more of an experience. That's changed a little bit as it's become a little bit more of an online game, with the bots, have certainly, become a real component, of the industry. But it feels like now there's more and more of these limited drops that are out there. So they do become sort of accessible in a way. But I think it's an interesting dynamic, because I think it does upset people sometimes when you can't get, that limited shoe that you want. And that happens, in your industry as well. But I think there's also an element of it. That's what people like to. And that's what sort of drives it. And they understand it and respect it. You might not like it, but you do understand that it's part of the game. And it's what drives you to want the next one, quite frankly. But I think in the sneaker game, what helps is that, if you really want that, fill in the blank shoe and you couldn't get the limited version, guess what? There's probably, a mainstream version of it that you can have access to, and you can get a piece of the prize. And then you obviously have the secondary market out there.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, because you said something to me last week. You probably just didn't even realize it was like this jaw-dropping quote, but it was. I even copied and pasted it and used it a lot to people. It was something about like, I got to find the exact. I'm going to find the exact quote now, so I don't want to mess this up. It was about sneakers and the secondary market. Let's see if I can find this here. Okay, here we go. Never pays to get them on the front side unless you're willing to overpay.
Yeah, because there's.
It's the truth.
Well, I think probably the proof is in the pudding here, because you and I were going after the same shoe, last week. And
that's right. And I didn't want to wait. I had severe FOMO, and I just bit the bullet. And I knew I was overpaying, but I overpaid way too much. You waited a little bit, had a little more patience, and you saved like $100.
Yeah, I paid basically half of what you did. I put in somewhat of a lowball price. I just let it sit there and marinate for a while. I knew the FOMO piece of it would wear off.
Sure.
And then, I took my chances that there would be more supply than there would be demand, and there was, and I got it. So it's an art form, quite frankly. I wouldn't say that I've perfected it by any stretch of the imagination, but there are a lot of people out there who have perfected, sort of that art form of sneaker collecting, sneaker buying, and mastering, the aftermarket. But that is the brilliant thing about the aftermarket. If you really wanted something bad and you're willing to and able to pay for it, it is available for you. So, which years ago, if the shoe only released in San Francisco and you lived in Hoboken, guess what? You weren't seeing it,
Right.
And that's what has changed it. And now you theoretically can access it. Sometimes is it the best experience that it's going to cost you, 10 times more than what the sticker value was? Maybe not, but that is part of the game at this point these days.
It's fascinating because, we find that in our community, and I don't hate on it if someone buys something from us with the intent to flip. I actually love it. I love when I see that price 500 plus on eBay. And like you said, it's like the initial, of course, after a couple of months it's going to drop down, but I love that people are buying things and they're putting on eBay before they even have it in hand. They're using the stock photo. I love it. And yes, I would rather collectors get it 100%, but I would rather there be this demand than us not sell out at all,
Yeah. Well, because what also happens then is the people who really want it, guess what? What did you do now? You guys did another one, and then you're going to do another one after that.
Right.
And you sort of keep it going, and you've built, a mini empire now at this point, based on sort of some of that demand that was out there. If the first one that you put out, that back scratcher that you guys did back in the day, if you would have tried to sell 100,000 of those, that probably would have been your last project.
That's right. And I think we also talked about something like this too. I don't know the exact quote that either of us said, but it was something like, I would rather sell out of 100, let's say, back scratchers than make 200 and sell 175.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, especially when you're talking about limited quantities like that, right? If you're a major, organization, when you'd much rather leave some on the table, right? Rather than leave any behind. Because then that propels you into your next project, and it brings a lot of heat and demand, and quite frankly, a lot of times on these small drops that you have, it's all about helping to also have a cascade effect on the broader business overall.
For sure, and we're all about the low quantity, and sometimes it hasn't always been a home run. Sometimes, and you have to listen to your audience. And I know, like one summer we did 2 summers ago, we're like, ooh, we have the Stomp in Paradise. Let's sell beach balls and water guns and sunglasses. And guess what? Nobody wanted that.
Yeah.
So like, even though we made like low quantity, I think it was like 300. I was sitting on like 150 of those, and I don't want to sit on 150 of anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, now that explains why you sent me one of those beach balls.
Right.
I
I had
was
those for a
getting some
while.
limited edition here, but
Well, I think now, but see, it's like I'm sure like sneakers too. Things that aren't sought after years later can be. So now, if someone wants the beach ball, it's going to be hard to get. But that summer, we literally at our live podcast, we gave them away.
Yep. Well, think about it. Even in the figure world, right? Some of the best figures now and the most collectible figures are the ones that just did not sell well back in the day. Because
100%. Guess
what? Nobody bought them, so they don't really exist. They probably ended up in a landfill somewhere. So now there's only a very small portion of them out there. So it's, what doesn't, feel like it's collectible or limited today may be the case, 10, 15 years from now.
One thing I do love about the sneaker, and listen, I don't know anything about this. Every time I have a sneaker question, I ask you, so whether it be like getting some Jordans or those Ghostbuster shoes, but there's like is it Stock X? Is that the website?
Yeah, that's one of the reseller.
Okay. So they authenticate the sneaker before they sell it to you. Is that what happens?
Yeah. It's an interesting process because basically you buy it, from another individual, but you never, necessarily interact with that individual. You send it to the third party who then verifies that it's actually real and then sends it out to the consumer. They get the money, send it back. So, it takes a little bit longer, but it's, it helps cut down on, a lot of the fraud and the counterfeiting that's out there. And there is a decent amount of that happens in the sneaker community. Obviously in the figure community, I think that's a little bit of a problem too. So, that's what I was
going to ask. Like, how big is that problem? Like, or if you're knowledgeable like yourself, like if you have two of the sneakers, one's fake, one's real, you could tell right away. But someone like me, I might get fooled.
Yeah, it's to a lay person, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference for the most part. People who are in the game and deal with this on a daily basis can see that. But
sure,
honestly, sometimes you can't see that when you're buying something online.
For sure,
and there's just a random picture of it, and they're putting it at the right angles and things like that. So you can find yourself duped. The one thing, there's always kind of a rule of thumb for me: if the price looks too good, it probably is. Right. Those things, that doesn't happen on. You're not going to get that Greg the Hammer Valentine, Hasbro on eBay.
I mean, it's funny you say that because that is one of the figures that has been, copied and has been, now, for instance, the guy who makes these copies, he says they're a custom. He says they're a copy. But who's to stop the guy who buys that to flip it on somebody else? Because it looks pretty damn similar. And there's people who make custom accessories. Now with 3D printing and the customizers are so good that, I say, like, if I held it in my hand, I could tell. But by pictures, some of these things look identical. So it's a scary world. And we don't really have a good authenticating company. There's something called AFA, but that they have been faked before too. So there's nothing really in the wrestling figure community or in the action figure community that I trust.
Sounds like you should start a new business up.
Oh man. I have too many things on my plate right now.
Yeah. But I mean, it was interesting. You told me a story one time about how you bid on that Greg figure that you needed for a while, but then you backed out of it at one point because you just got nervous that it wasn't real or authentic. Right. And then you lost out on it the first go around, if I remember correctly.
Yes, because at first I was so naive. Like I only knew about these prototypes, from like the wrestling figure message boards and stuff like that. I never held one. And of course the price was, I believe it was like around $12,000, which was insane. So like for me to take a chance on this, like, could it be fake? Now, of course, I've held that one in my hand. I've held two others in my hand. I have one. Now I know what's real and what's fake. Now I know the backstory. I can tell. But at the time, I was super nervous, and I was actually half like relieved that I got outbid. At the time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's the same way in the sneaker game. That is a little nerve wracking. But those third party sites, obviously. Help alleviate that, and obviously, buying it from the source, certainly helps, as well.
So another question I have for you. So, in the wrestling figure community, there's people who keep it in the box, and then there's people who, like myself, who let him breathe. They like him loosey. So, what's the deal with the sneaker community? People wear these things. They keep them in the box. You were telling me some people buy two. What's the deal here?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I stole this from you. I'm going to be, point blank about it, but I do use the let him breathe, comment a lot when it comes to the sneaker piece of it. But, in this community, there's the, you call it the one to rock, one to stock, basically.
I
So
like that.
you try to buy two of something that you really like. So you keep one on the shelves on ice, and then you've got the other one, that you can wear around, which, for me, I like to try to wear all the shoes,
Sure.
that I buy, but there's definitely a lot of people out there who do like to collect them and display them, almost like figures, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
So, and then there's people who want to do both of them. So I don't have enough money to do both of them. So I choose to wear them.
Well, no, I mean, I don't, there are very select figures that I have in the package and out of the package. For me, I prefer to get them, out of the package, or even, I'll get it in the package and open it. Some people think I'm crazy if I buy a rare figure, but for my collection, I have, let's say, for instance, these AWA Remco figures from the early 80s. I have them all out of the package, and there was these two that I bought for like $1,000 each, and I opened them because all my figures are loose. Doesn't make sense to have these two in the box, and people think it's crazy, but me personally, I wasn't trying to resell those. So they're for my collection. So you got to do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever, however you enjoy the game is how you enjoy the game, right?
Oh, 100%. So what's your wrestling figure collection like? I see you have a couple things over there. What you have a couple, like you're a casual collector? What do you got over there?
I'm pretty casual, right? Like, if I could show you this collection right here, and to the average person, they'd be like, "Oh my God, you got all kinds of wrestling figures."
Right.
The people who are watching this would probably just laugh at me and be like, "Oh, hey, you got an LJN, Macho Man? Ooh, good for you."
It's one of my favorites. I have one on my display too. Mine's in the package though.
Yeah, but I don't have anything that would be, considered, ridiculously rare or anything of that nature. But, I like to, I've got some from childhood still. I like to, I'll pop my head into a garage sale or a flea market every now and then, see what's kind of hanging around. For the average person out there, I have a better wrestling figure collection than 99.99999% of the population. However, in this community, though, I don't necessarily have anything that's off the charts by any stretch. So,
well, something we try to push on the podcast is that, like, it's not even about the quality or the quantity. It's about what makes you happy, right? Like what exactly. You like, So if you only have what you have and that's fine enough for you, that's fine enough for us. It's not a competition. I call myself the Michael Jordan. It's a gimmick. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have the best collection. I certainly don't have the most figures. It's a little gimmick that we have on the podcast. I feel like if you have your figures, no matter what condition they're in, no matter how many you have, if it makes you happy, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And that's all this podcast is about. It's just making people, kind of feel like those simpler times, those childhood nostalgic feelings,
Yeah, no, I mean, look, collecting comes in all different, shapes, forms, sizes, and my sneaker collection, however, on the other hand, is a completely different animal. So, and I'm sure your sneaker collection versus mine is the same as my wrestling figure collection versus yours. But you know what? If we both enjoy, kind of what we're doing, that's that's really all that matters.
Now, are your sneakers, are they like out in display, or are they stacked up in a closet somewhere and exactly what's what?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. I envy those people who are able to organize them, and they've got their closet filled and everything's in plastic bins, and they're labeled and in alphabetical order, etc. Right. I've got some stuff in the basement. I got some stuff in the closets. I got a lot of things. Just a traditional sneakerhead is one of these ones where you open their closet and 400 shoes will just kind of fall out on top of it, and that's kind of what my closet looks like. So, I wish I was better at it. Let's just put it that way. When I look at like the collection that you have and kind of how you keep it so nice and everything, I'm like, oh man, I wish I could do that.
Yeah, but I mean, to be honest, I mean, that's how it looks on like some Instagram photos and YouTube clips. But if you open my toy room right now, it looks like a bomb went off. Like right now, we're in a crisis right now because, I get new figures. I'm like, oh, I'll open this one up tomorrow. But then you do that every couple of days with more figures. 6 months go by and your room's a mess. So right now, like you literally have to do the Scott Hall walk to get into my room, and there's figures everywhere. And I really got to organize it, but it's like almost too far gone now.
Yeah, no, I know the feeling. It's kind of like you got to let one go to bring another one into the house, kind of a thing.
You got to make some cuts. That's what we say on the podcast. You got to make some cuts.
Yeah.
There's only so much real estate.
Yep. Which is honestly that's sort of the interesting part of the game too. Is that like because of that and because of the resellers and everything, these communities are constantly in motion.
Absolutely,
right?
And I think they're both like that. Yes, 100%.
It's amazing how, and especially, if you want to grab something else, what, I'm going to sell item A so I can go out and buy items B and C. It's just this constant flow, which is great because it doesn't become stagnant at that point.
It's like the stock market for sneakers and figures. You know,
Yep.
I don't know anything about the stock market, but I can tell you about figures and you know, investing in figures. I can do that.
Yeah. No, I mean,
So,
that's
ahead,
that's why we've always talked about, like, you know, those similarities between kind of our two worlds on the collecting side of it, right? It's just,
right.
it's all the same mentalities, right? You want to have the full collection. You want to get the, you know, you might want one to rock, one to stock. You want one mint on card, one let them breathe.
That's
You know,
right.
it's just a lot of the same mentalities that are out there,
Sure.
which is great, which is why I've always said, hey, we got a lot of synergies here between what it is that we do.
So before I let you go, I want to talk quickly about the partnership with WWE, and do we have anything else coming out down the line in the next couple of months to look forward to?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask. But we actually, a week from today, we're launching a Puma shoe with Sasha Banks.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
we've done some Sasha. We did a Sasha Banks shoe once before. You know, obviously sold out, you know, immediately. This one's actually really special because it's super limited edition, and we partnered. It was for a project that was based in COVID relief. So we've got all the profits going back, you know, to COVID relief, and we partnered Sasha with one of our store managers, who's a massive wrestling fan and a massive Sasha Banks fan, and we were going to let him design a shoe. When he told me, "Oh, I love Sasha Banks," I was like, "Well, wait a second. Let me see what we can do here."
Right.
And, you know, WWE was fantastic, and you know, allowed us to work, you know, directly with Sasha and design a shoe between you know, the two of them, and to tell a story about, you know, both of their cities. It's Detroit and Boston.
Right.
You know, Sasha's from Boston, our manager's from Detroit, and it's kind of like a mismatched shoe, if you will, which is really great. But the coolest thing about it, though, is it was designed by none other than Sarat.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
so
great.
For those who don't know, that's Sasha's husband. So he does a lot of, you know, the wardrobe and design and costume work for WWE. So he's got that background. So when it came time to design the shoe, I'm like, well, wait a second, I know the perfect guy to do this.
Yeah.
And it all came full circle because he used to work as a Footlocker manager, or actually a Foot Action manager, which is part of the same company, years ago. You know, back in the day when he was, you know, just coming out of school, I think. So it was very interesting how it all sort of came full circle. But that's the next project out there, and I'm just always very, you know, encouraged and thankful for all the people like yourself or anybody else out there in that industry who, you know, helps purchase and kind of move these things forward. Because every time we sell through one of these means that our likelihood of doing another project just increases, you know, that much.
Because you guys make the product so cool. You know, sometimes a wrestling shirt can be like, I like wrestling. I don't really want to wear a wrestling shirt. But you guys make the product so like hip. I don't know if I feel old for using the word hip, but like cool to wear and trendy to wear. And you just make it, you know, different. Like, right, you have the graffiti, you know, Bret Hart shirt, you know, like just makes it so it's such a different look, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is, you know, this shirt that we've got here, this is part of the Urban Aztec collection. And we did the shirt for, you know, you and Brian, you know, in this collection as well. But it was great because I brought in a streetwear artist who I work with, you know, to give it a little bit more of a, you know, sort of a graffiti streetwear type feel to it, you know, which is a little bit something different, which, you know, I think, you know, a lot of the fans, you know, respond to pretty well. And these shirts have done, you know, extremely well. You guys, you're no surprise. Your shirt sold out instantly.
Limited edition, baby. Thanks, Major Marks. But it's just great that it's also part of a line too. So you can have, you know, Bret Hart. There's Eddie Guerrero. There's so many. I saw Street Profits at the mall the other day when I was walking down the mall. You know, there's almost everybody. So it's a part of a line, which is cool. And then you'll change things up. You know, that's the best part about it.
Well, and here's the collector in me, right? That's kicking in because I bought every one of these shirts that we have, except I don't have the Macho Man shirt, and it's like driving me nuts. I'm like, oh man, I gotta get that, and I've been waiting for it to just pop up on eBay somewhere or something.
You need a safe search, Macho Man. You need that safe search, baby.
I've got 29 of the 30 shirts basically right now, and it's just driving me nuts that I can't complete the collection, but I know I'll do it one day.
Well, guys, if someone has an extra Macho Man shirt, hit up John. He's done so much for us. Let's get back a little bit. I have a broski cut one with the nipples out and the neck cut out. I can send you if you want that.
That's what I always say, but every time I send you a shirt, it's like within 15 minutes, the sleeves are cut off.
Oh, sleeves are cut off. The broski cut, baby. John, thank you so much for joining us. This was a very interesting interview about a different, you know, avenue of collecting. Tell everyone where we can find you on social media if they want to check you out.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. So I'm at Hawkensock on Instagram. That's the only place you're going to find me. It's HOCHANDSOCK.
John, thank you so much. And we'll have you on again when there's more merch to talk about.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, bud.